Closets. I throw everything out and reorganize it. And I said, Mendi, come speak to us because you do everything with just your touch. And so I'm really excited to have you, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but live in Fishers for the last 24 years. And I used to come down this way when I was in corporate America. 15 years of pharmaceutical sales and 10 years of medical equipment. So I called on hospitals and doctors' offices and psych units for many, many years. 13 of the 15 years in pharmaceutical is when I did the psych. So it was state hospitals and psych units. So mental health is a very important part of my life. More ways than you will know. I might talk about some of it. Sometimes I get into it, and sometimes we have plenty of time, but I'm not going to take that full hour. I don't need a full hour. All right, so Mendi Fund Consulting, a very creative name. You know, when I started the business, not knowing exactly which way to go, and I did it pretty quickly because someone wanted me to help with some of their social media. It was a not-for-profit coffee house, and they said, well, we can't really pay for this. You need to have a LLC. I'm like, okay, I'll start an LLC, and I did. If you're ever interested in starting a business, talk to other people that have started and learn from them because they can tell you the things that they did right and things they did wrong if they're nice enough to let you know all that. All right, so this is what I see a lot of times with my clients, friends, etc. They are completely overwhelmed. They're often taking care of kids, taking care of parents, working. Even just one of those things can be overwhelming. So they've got a never-ending to-do list. They have a home that is cluttered, or they have an office that is, just the paperwork has gotten out of control. Clutter just happens. We all have it, but women especially have trouble asking for help. They want to be like, I got it all together because Jane down the street, she's got more kids and she works and she does this and she has it all together. I have to have it all together. Well, guess what? No one has it all together all the time. There are often times that we will just feel paralyzed on where to start and how to start. So just know you're not the only one asking for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help, all right? And just even 4 hours, you would be surprised, someone working by your side and just getting stuff done, and you see this improvement, you're like, okay, now I get it. And the other thing is a lot of times, like, I know how to do it. It's just finding the time, the energy. A lot of times you start a project that you don't like doing anyway. Oh, I'm gonna go get a cup of tea, and then you start just doing something else. So I keep people focused. If it's something that, I'm with them, I have to be able to have them give me permission if anything's to be purged or donated. And I don't make people get rid of as much as they think. They think I'm gonna make them get rid of a ton of stuff, and I'm very sentimental, super sentimental. I've lost all 4 of my parents. I'll fill you in a little more on that too. So things that mean a lot to me, and I can cry at the drop of a hat because I'm like, oh, I miss my mom. This is her ring. Anyway, so I get it. And I've also been having lost family members. I lost 5 family members in a 12-year time period. I get it. So there's times that people have trauma. They've had loss, divorce, etc. Trauma also often leads to clutter, etc. All right, so this is me. I was actually in foster care and then adopted at the age of 4. And I remember all of it. It's interesting. I still remember my mom and dad, which I refer to the parents that raised me as mom and dad. And then I'll say biological for the others. I remember them picking me up, and I'm in the back seat of this huge car, and I go to their house, which is now my house. This is your new brother, Jeff, and your new brother, Greg. What I found for me is that disorganization and lack of control really bothered me. And there's not much we can control in life, as you know. The older you get, the more you realize it. I could control my space and how things looked, worked, etc. And the more organized I was, the more at peace I was. And then I did this years ago, not as a company, but just helping friends and family. And I'd go to mom's house and she'd be sleeping, and I'd just go through her pantry and clean it out. I'd go through her refrigerator, clean the oven. Weird things. I always thought, gosh, I am so weird. And if you know me, I am a little weird, but I thought I'm weird in that sense, but I realized that is something that is what I am good at, and I enjoy doing it. Because I had a client the other day, she asked me this every time, doesn't this overwhelm you? I'm like, no, I love it. That's why I do this. And I make people feel good. So when I see somebody happy and, relaxed and just like, oh my gosh, this made such a difference, that makes me feel good. So even though I'm serving them, it's serving me too. All right, so this is my brother and sister-in-law. Jeff is 7 years older than me, and he married Jan when I was in 7th grade, so 1976. And I just laugh because I'm so close to them. Anyway, after my parents had passed away, I was staying at their house, and this was in Fort Wayne. And while they were at work, I had a day, I'm just going, okay, what can I do? I'm antsy, and I thought, I'm just gonna go in the kitchen and just kind of straighten up, clean up a little bit. They have a lazy, the typical corner cabinet that's a Lazy Susan. They also have a very small pantry. So I took everything out of the Lazy Susan. I noticed that there was some things that had spilled. I mean, how many of us have had that? If you have food anywhere, it can get spilled, break, whatever. So I took everything out, looked at dates, and set some things aside, things that were super old, I know I could pitch. So cleaned out the Lazy Susan, cleaned out the pantry. They come home and she's like, oh my gosh, this is great. Well, but you didn't need to do that. You're supposed to be here relaxing. I'm like, no, I like doing this. This revs me up. Well, if you really like doing it, tomorrow's Saturday, I'm gonna be home. Would you consider helping me with a closet that's near the entry? Actually, it's back by the bedrooms. I'm like, sure. So the next day, we work on that. And let me back up and tell you, I asked permission to do this presentation. And this was 4 years ago, maybe. And she said, yeah, do you remember what I told you before we started? And I said, no. She said, I hope I find some scissors. I constantly lose scissors. So we pull everything out and take things, and I look down on the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of scissors. Because what happens when you can't find something? You go buy another. But you also spend a lot of time looking for whatever it is that you've lost or misplaced. So I save people time, I save them money. Yeah, scissors aren't very expensive, but if you're constantly rebuying things and buying multiple of things because you don't have a home for it, that's what you always want to do. You have a home for certain things and put like things together. That makes a huge difference. So anyway, that was a fun little story that we giggled about, and luckily I have a lot of fun with her. We laugh, and she can laugh at herself. Everybody has strengths. Everybody has things that they're really good at. That just isn't one of hers. She's got a lot of other strengths. All right, so step 1 of purge process, this is a little exaggerated because they're big bins. When I pick up something, I'll ask someone, let's just say this, all right, is this something you want to keep, donate, trash, recycle, shred? And then we just separate it all out. Anything that's donated, shred, recycle, I will take with me and get it out of there. So that's a benefit, because how many times when I did this before it was a company, I would say, okay, well, that bag will go to Goodwill, that'll go to, this other not-for-profit, blah, blah, blah. And I go back and they're still there, or they're in their trunk. We've all done that. And you're like, oh, I meant to drop that off. So we all have done that. They're thrilled when I get it out of there. I drop it off, I take it where it needs to go. So that's the process. Okay, so what's the cost of doing nothing? If you Google mental health and clutter, or clutter and mental health, you will see a ton of articles. This is one from 2017, Psychology Today. And I know you can read, but I'm going to read it anyway. All this clutter, physical and mental, can interrupt your flow, your ability to move, your ability to think. It turns out your well-being could also become victim to what is called the clutter effect, a collection of recent studies on stress, life satisfaction, physical health, and cognition all speak to the value of streamlining. So, having been in the medical field, heart disease is the #1 killer. Do you know what really exacerbates heart disease? Stress. So if you can do just even one thing to minimize your stress, you are really going to help with your heart disease, blood pressure, sleep better, better focus, cognition, etc. All right, so clutter really affects us more than we think. And a lot of times it's just that little nagging thing back there, because you're thinking, oh yeah, it doesn't bother me, but you go home and you're like, oh yeah, or your office, or somebody you know. If you go in let's say you're one of the really organized people, but you go to somebody else's house that's disorganized, it makes you go, oh, I just want to, there's probably a couple people in here that just like, oh, I just want to help. Like I always forget to take before pictures, and I don't do it all the time anyway because I don't want to make people feel bad, but every so often I'll do before and after pictures. So what else do I think? So stress, some of the things I hear from my clients. Oh, this was easier than I thought. Why didn't I do this sooner? Now I can have people over to my house again. I was embarrassed and I didn't want anyone to see. So now I can entertain again, or I can have family members over again. These are some of the things I hear over and over. So it makes a huge difference and just makes me feel good. But like I said, it's one of the few things in life we can control, at least to some degree. All right, this is a client way back when. This is a beginning photo on the left. Her parents died. This was in 2014, and it was actually before I started my business. And she had a brother, and still does, in Texas, and then she was in Fishers. Her mom was 66 years old, died in a car accident. Her dad died of cancer, all in the same year. So that is overwhelming, emotional, just sad. So she ended up, this is a landing of her home, so when she went up the stairs, this was a room that was about, that big here. She walked past it every day for years. And I'd helped her clean out her parents' house, but still a lot of it ended up at her house. And I kept saying, can I come help you? But you have to wait until they're ready to, not everybody's ready right away. And grieving process is different for everyone. So you've got to be sensitive and careful on that. So anyway, we turned on music and spent a few hours, and then 2 different days, because a lot of times when you start losing energy, I'm like, do you like music? And I'm like, let's turn on some music. What's your favorite kind of music? Because it just kind of peps you up. I find I clean better when I have music going. And then she ended up, this is the after picture that she took for me. So these were pictures she took for me, so they're not like super special, fancy, but that's okay. And she made a craft area, an office out of it. But getting all that out, you could just see the weight going off of her of the stress. So that's one example. All right, so in closing, because I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions and then tell you a smidge, I want you to know that you don't have to tackle that overwhelming to-do list or clutter all by yourself. I'm here to help. And if it's not me, we know a lot of, Jody and I both know a lot of great people. Because sometimes you might not click with someone, you might prefer someone else. There's a ton of people around that are really awesome that would be here to help. All right, so I wanted to let you know that I actually am on, the other thing that can help you is I started videos a year ago this month, and most of them are less than a minute. Some of them are a little over a minute, giving tips and tricks of things you can do. So whether it's in your kitchen, your bathroom, trying to think what else, primary closet, etc. I'm getting ideas. Sometimes products, you don't need to buy a lot of products. A lot of times you have things you can use, but I did a pantry recently, and every single time I've done a pantry, even with the prices having gone up, it's way less than $100 just to buy like 3 products, usually 3 or 4 that I'm like, every pantry needs. It just really helps. But some people already have baskets or have some things. But I will tell you, don't go out and buy a bunch of stuff before the professional organizer comes, because half the time people buy the wrong size, the wrong type. It's just better to wait. Plus, we get a discount. We get discounts a lot of places, so might as well take advantage of our discount. And I get coupons periodically too with Container Store. So I shop Container Store, Bed Bath & Beyond, Target, Walmart, Amazon, And there's one thing that I get at Container Store that I can't find anywhere else at this point, but most of the places have copied them. So you don't have to spend a ton of money. But I am on Instagram, I have a YouTube channel, Facebook Business and Personal, and LinkedIn. I don't know you're looking, so you can even go stalk and just kind of see, but you might get some tips and tricks. So follow me, I would love it. Anyway, so that's it for me. I'm going to open it up for questions. Ask me anything. Yes.
Help people organize business items and also things on the computer.
Yes, to some degree, but I have another person who is fabulous when it comes to like the computer and whatever. But some of the computer stuff I can do, but there's a couple people that we know that are like really, like different people kind of like specialize to some degree. So yes, I can, but if it's something beyond me, I will never act like, oh, I can do that, no problem. That's my image. That I will look bad if I do it and I don't do it well. So I will be honest if it's like, that might be a little beyond me, but here's somebody I can recommend. And I will always recommend if there's somebody that can do it better than I. All right, thanks for asking. And to give you an idea too, one thing that makes me a little different than most professional organizers is I'm also a concierge. What's a concierge? helping busy people get things done. I almost call it like a part-time, very part-time personal assistant. So if there's somebody that needs help and they're like, you know what, I'm in a really busy time in my life, or this happened and I need some help, so I might help them for a few weeks, and they're like, okay, it's all good. And then they don't need me for a while, and then they'll call me, and then they don't need me, whatever. But you want somebody in your hip pocket. Who am I gonna call? I'm gonna call Mendi. I need help. I have a client right now who, just heartbreaking. She's in Fortville, and her husband divorced her and went for somebody 25 years younger. She was diagnosed with a terminal illness. She's got really 3 years or less to live. She went from a 10,000 square foot home to a 3,000, which is still pretty big. So I was helping her unpack and get things together. And I'm like, you know what, let's throw in, because her entire left arm doesn't work anymore. It's moving over to here. She'll be in a wheelchair in just a matter of months. Because I looked it up and Googled and checked with the doctor and learned a lot about it. But so eventually she's gonna need help beyond me. Anyway, until then, I'm like, you know what, while I'm here and we're unpacking things, let me throw a load of laundry in. So I'll empty the dishwasher and clean up the kitchen. I always say I don't do whole house clean, but I clean up areas or help with, because, your kitchen island or whatever, and she can barely pick things up, so she's one of my clients I help as a concierge. I have a gentleman, he's an attorney and also has many talents, and he reached out to me. I said, how'd you find me? He said, Google. I said, Google works. And I've helped him when he's like, okay, here's something, task I just need help with. I need to find somebody to do some landscaping. I'd love to hire some young kids just to help them out. I need these different things, painter, etc. So I get the quotes. I say, here's 3 companies I recommend. I can get the quotes, or I can have them meet you out there, etc. And just taking off some of the tasks, clicking off those tasks. That's huge, because anymore, I did this the other day, I'm on the phone, you're on hold. You're doing this, doing that. And a lot of that I can do from home, and I don't nickel and dime them. I'm like, okay, I was on the phone for 20 minutes, okay, I'll charge them for maybe 10 or whatever it might be. But there's things that just take forever. They're not hard, they just are time consuming. You don't always have time between 8 and 5 or 9 and 5 to do that. So those are some other things I do. Anything else? Don't be bashful if there's something you're curious.
Okay, so normally, my downstairs, I keep pretty decent, right? Not cluttered. But then when it comes to my bedroom or my closet, that's where I struggle. So then I do this big deep clean on the weekend and things and try and get things decluttered, but then over time it gets back there, right? So do you give advice on how to prevent the clutter from happening after you
Very good question. Yes, I give a few different ways, and sometimes over 2 or 3 years it might still get bad, but it usually doesn't get as bad as maybe it was in the beginning. But when you get a little bit of a system going, or you get like for instance, the simplest thing, I did this years ago before they sold them everywhere, but those felt hangers. I switched all my stuff slowly as I had coupons, because I got them at Steinmart. It was before Bed Bath & Beyond had them. That's how long ago it was. But doing that, I could fit things that were in the spare bedroom closet over into my closet, just going from tube hangers to the felt. Plus, they do better on your clothes. So there's certain things I'm like, okay, so you can do this. And what ends up helping is I do sleeveless, short sleeve, long sleeve, light to dark. And when you see, oh my gosh, I have 12 white blouses. Well, do all of them fit? Do all of them have stains? But you see what you have, and it's so much easier to get ready in the morning when your clothes are organized. It's huge, because my sister-in-law, when she went into my primary closet, trying to new verbiage, years ago, and she said, oh my gosh, I loved your closet. She went home and we did it at her house, and she's like, it's easier to get ready in the morning. I'm like, exactly, because you see what you have. So yes, I do help with some different ways, and everybody's different, so I kind of see what their personality is like, what kind of works for them, and if that doesn't, then maybe we need to tweak a little bit. But yes, I do that for sure. And that reminds me of something else too, is one of the pantries I worked in recently was a walk-in pantry, not huge, but pretty good size. And then this gal happens to love gravy, so she had jars of gravy. Jar of gravy here, jar of gravy there. There were 8 jars of gravy, but they were all over the place. When I put it all together, then you see your inventory, and I also worked in, my first job out of college was Russell Stover Candies, and I sold to grocery stores. So I know about, putting the things that expire sooner in the front. So I will organize things with expiration dates as well. So use this up before you go to because often we put it away. The newer stuff's in the front, the stuff in the back is expiring. But by me doing the shelf thing for canned goods, you can see them much easier. I also tell you, a can of soup, oh my gosh, it expired 5 months ago. It's okay. Those are kind of guesstimates for them. Now, dairy and seafood or raw chicken or that kind of stuff, I'm particular about. You need to be careful. That could affect your health. But canned goods can go longer. Some of the box goods can go longer, so don't panic if it's, but if it's something that's expired years and years ago, get rid of it. Get new. Spices. Spices, they did require years ago putting expiration dates. So if you have some without expiration dates, there's a chance that they're very, very old. And sometimes those tins, the old tins, are pretty old. They don't hurt you, you just lose flavor. And if you're gonna take the time to prepare a meal and you want it to be flavorful, yummy, have spices that actually, have some flavor to them, or smell them and see. So it's worth doing that. And the other thing is some people buy these huge spices. If it's something you use all the time, that's fine. Something you don't use very often, buy smaller quantities. Otherwise, you're just going to throw it away. So that's one of the things I do recommend. So have you heard the term decanting? Decanting is when you take like cereal box, dump it into a neat little, could be OXO brand or whatever brand, decanter, and then you label it cereal. You can do that with spices. You can do that, all that. Do I think you should decant every single thing? No. I mean, really, you don't need to. Now, somebody that wants it, I want it to look like this Pinterest. Okay, I can make it look like that Pinterest. However, most people, it's like, I don't need it to be that perfect. And sometimes I just need to keep my cereal box where the kids just grab it and go, and I don't need to decant it. So I don't go in and say, you need to decant this, you need to buy this, you need to. No, you don't need to. You can organize stuff without buying a lot of product. Jody?
So I was just going to reiterate. Yeah, 'cause I need a microphone. I was just going to reiterate. So Mendi and I don't do the same thing. So she does homes and things. I do pictures only. But I think one of the things too, a lot of people are scared to have somebody come in because they're afraid that their story is going to get out, or pictures. I was telling these guys, so I'm also work on a rescue, an ambulance, and so have to follow HIPAA. And I always tell my clients, HIPAA applies with you as well. So the pictures or videos or things that I've seen, and probably the same thing with Mendi, is it doesn't get out there unless you get permission from someone to share those photos or those stories. So a lot of times that's what causes mental health issues for people too, is they're afraid somebody's going to go out and talk about them. So that's, another thing that is nice. And Mendi's services is a nice thing to give for Christmas presents, because it doesn't put more stuff in their house that you're going to inherit back someday and go, why did I give them that stuff? Because I didn't want it. So that's a nice way to buy a gift that can take away some of that stress.
Thank you. I'm glad you reminded me, the confidential and no judgment. That's huge, and people ask me, why don't you put a sign on your car or put something on your car? And I don't, because I don't want someone to know who I was there and what I was doing. It's nobody's business. And people often ask me, I think you worked with my friend Jane. I'm like, I don't know. I don't talk about who I worked with, And then Jane says, you can tell who I said, no, I just don't. It's easier for me not to do it all the time than to, sometimes I tell, sometimes I don't. So, if I work with somebody, nobody knows. I do not discuss it. Don't tell anybody who I work with. The photos, once in a while, somebody's like, so yeah, get it before, do this, especially the young people, because they're kind of into it, and so then I do, but I would only ask permission. I never use names. When people give me Google reviews and I post it, I only put initials, TS. They might not know who that is. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. And it's funny because there's a medical company downtown, not Lilly, although they were a lot of ex-Lilly people. I helped them for a year just doing a variety of projects, and the owner at the time, she has since sold it to her partner, but she said, I know what I want to have you do. I want you to offer your services to my employees. I will pay for, I think it was 4 hours at one time, then it was 8 hours, for a year that they can use you, and I pay for it. I mean, the women, they used me. It was even helping get Christmas decorations out or putting Christmas decorations away or doing different things. But the guys didn't use me. And I'm like, what's going on? What? I try to offer suggestions. Like, this is free. They're paying for my services free to you. Why don't you go home and ask your significant other, hey, my company is paying for these 4 hours. Would you or could you use it? Do you not think all those women would jump on it? What the men told me is, well, I'm afraid that they're going to think they are clutter. There's clutter, but I don't want to insult my wife or my significant other. They're going to be like, I said, well, I do other things. So tell them, say, here's her, go look online. You can see different things she does. I'll even drive people to appointments because I didn't get a colonoscopy, and you're supposed to do it at 50. I did it later because I'm single, no kids. Didn't have somebody take me to the appointment because you have to stay there. So it's about a 4 hour by the time you get there, do it, get out of the anesthesia and come home. My niece finally took me, which I said, I babysit your kids all the time. You're on summer break, so she took me years ago. But anyway, I was thinking, what are things that I needed or I see these mamas need? I have a huge heart for moms and elderly. It seems to be my two favorite, but the two extremes. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you're like, well, could you do this? Can you? And like, for instance, when it comes to any photos, getting really involved in a lot of photos, all of us just hand it right over to Jody, and she's fabulous. Because so many people have a lot of photos, and to try to go through them or to convert them, etc. So she's our gal for that. We have a gal that is certified in hoarding. So you probably don't know this. There's 5 levels of hoarding. So the upper levels, I can't work with. It is a true mental illness, and it is, they'll need therapy, et cetera, and they're not ready to get rid of something. The others I can. Give you an example, a woman that reached out to me, and she has a because I looked up, she has a master's and a PhD, high-level executive. The outside of her house looked fine, but anyway, she called me, and I do free consultations, so I offer free 20-minute consultations. So I talked to her on the phone the first time. I've been there twice. Different years. And she said, I'm having surgery, I need to get from the sofa to the bathroom and from my bed to the bathroom. So when someone says that, you kind of get a visual, like, okay, let me check on a couple things. So I said, let me ask you a question. I said, I have been bit by a dog. I love dogs, and it's pretty rare that that's going to happen, but I need to know, like, how many animals do you have? Because if she tells me she's got, 20 cats and 15 dogs and whatever, I'm thinking, that might be beyond me, and I need to reach out to this other gal and see if maybe she wants to help her. Oh, I have 1 dog. I'm like, okay, all right. So let me tell you my process, like I did on that. I said, I have bins, I take things to donate, oh, no. Just bring trash bags. Okay, then I'm going to ask you a question. You got to be honest with me. Are you ready to release it? Yes. So I'm like, okay. She's ready to release it. Because a lot of times, if it's true hoarding, and she did. She had McDonald's containers, pizza, you name it, just trash everywhere. So, and in 4 hours, I got her lower level and her bedroom. Amazing that I could do it that quickly, but when I get going. And she was lovely, but I don't know what trauma she might have gone through. We've all had a story of our background. There's something that we might have gone through, and sometimes it comes out in clutter. Sometimes it comes out in drinking, sometimes eating, whatever it is. We all have been through something. We all have a story. And I don't know. And I remember when I walked in the door, she was like this, she was embarrassed. And it was before COVID, so I didn't wear a mask. I knew I probably would need to. And I walked in, you definitely, because the dog only went to the bathroom in the house. And luckily it was a little Yorkie, so a little bit smaller poo. I prayed before I went, just Lord, help me to do this because I know it's going to be hard. But I asked her, I said, I'm going to ask you a question. You can say no. Can I pray with you? And even if someone doesn't believe, how am I doing on time, by the way? That is something that often they're like, yes, because they need something. And I just said, you know what? Help Sally, use that name, to know that, everybody gets in situations. And to not be so hard on herself, to give herself grace. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to condemn. I'm not here to tell everybody, although even telling the story, you don't know who it is, you don't know where it is. But, and she cried, and it just helped kind of break the ice a little bit. And then after that I said, you can say no, but can I hug you? And she said, yeah. And so I hugged her, and I said, okay, we're gonna tackle this. I'm here for you. I gotcha. I gotcha. So anyway, and then a couple years later, she called me again because I knew if she didn't get help, she'd be back in the same circumstances. Of course, at that time, she didn't have the dog; she had cats, and her 20-some-year-old daughter lived with her. And so, what are you teaching her? You know, so her daughter's the same way. She came downstairs, she goes, "Oh, wow, we can see the floor." Anyway, so another little story. Anything else? Well, and if there's anything you want to ask me in private or whatever, you know, reach out any way you want, if you know somebody or have a family member, whatever. Because the other thing is when someone dies and you suddenly have to deal with it, it's a hard thing. And I've had so many people tell me, oh, I wish I knew about you because I had to deal with that when my parents passed, one of my parents or something, so.
All right. Well, thank you so much for
You're
coming
welcome.
all the way
Thank you.
down from the north side and
Sure.
just sharing with us. And thank you guys for coming out today because we really appreciate it. Bring your friends. We want to get this back to like you know, over 100 women, standing room only, and really add value back to the community. So thank you guys for your support.